better yourself and to better those around you, then that is the whole kind of spirit of permissionlessness. At least that's my view on it there. But yeah, as I said, huge win here from Coinbase and OpenSea, of course, as well. Their lawsuit got withdrawn, which was great to see. I guess that's why they're comfortable doing a token now. They probably knew about this a little while ago, and they're like, okay, well, it's time to do our token because we can actually do it without facing the wrath of the SEC sort of thing. And I think with Coinbase's case being withdrawn as well here, I think the chances of Base having a token have gone up pretty dramatically as well. I think that, you know, I've been saying this for a while, that Base would eventually have a token. I still think they are going to have a token. I think the chances just went up. Before I said it was like a 50-50, I think. Now I think it's like a 75% chance that they have a token. Not sure when, maybe this year, maybe next year. Don't know on timing. It's always a bit funny to think about timing of things because it's always either later than you think or earlier than you think. I remember when I thought that the Optimism would be the last L2 to actually do a token, and they ended up being the first one to do a token. So yeah, it's kind of hard to I guess gauge these things and see what happens when. But I do think that Base is eventually going to have a token, especially now that there's a much friendlier SEC where they're not going to get sued for just doing a token, basically. You know, if they're doing it to defraud people and scam people, sure, go after them. But if they're doing it as part of their decentralization of the Base network, wanting to get the community involved, that sort of honest building should not be prosecuted. It should be actively encouraged, and it should be helped along as much as possible as well, especially for these US-based companies, since the US government should have a huge vested interest in making sure that US-based companies do well, if not the best, in each of their fields here. But you can go give Ryan Armstrong's tweet about this a read. It is a bit long, but it gives more context about all of this. I'll link that in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so I think the biggest piece of news over the weekend, besides the Coinbase thing, was the Bybit hack. Now, for those of you who don't know what this was about, $1.5 billion worth of ETH was stolen from Bybit, which is a centralized exchange. It was not a bug in the Ethereum protocol or an Ethereum smart contract that allowed this ETH to be stolen. It was basically a very sophisticated attack that was conducted by North Korea, by the Lazarus group in North Korea. And essentially what they did is they got malware onto the devices of the signers of the multisig, of the addresses that Bybit uses. They were able to get the signers to sign something that moved the funds off of Bybit out of the Bybit cold wallet addresses into the hot wallet addresses, and then onto the attacker's address there. So this, I believe, is the largest centralized exchange hack in history, from what I know. And I'm talking hack, not like collapse. Obviously, FTX is the largest collapse, but this is the largest hack. And it happened not from an exploit or anything. It happened from, as I said, a very sophisticated kind of attack from a nation-state group. North Korea is obviously very known for doing this. They don't answer to anyone because who's going to prosecute them, right? They're already sanctioned to hell, and they're already the enemy of every other nation out there. So basically, they don't care about doing the most illegal things, and that's what they do to do this, right? There's no recourse here for them in terms of what, I mean, they've already got all these sanctions on them. What are you going to do? Sanction them again? You can't, right? So they know that they're basically, I wouldn't say untouchable is the right word, but they know that there's no repercussions to this. So they're just going to keep doing it. And they got away with a lot, guys. And of course, there was a lot of concern trolling as well over the weekend especially from Bitcoin maximalists, but also from a lot of Solana people too, which was very disappointing to see, but not unexpected, that Ethereum should roll back the chain in order to return the stolen ETH to Bybit. Now, this is not possible for like so many different reasons, and Tim Biker actually shared a really great tweet going through why this isn't actually possible, why this doesn't make sense, whether it's a rollback or something called an irregular state transition or a regular state change. It's just unworkable in today's environment. TLDR is because that you can't just do a I guess like surgical recovery of the funds even as part of an irregular state transition, because everything's so intertwined now. And Tim gives a lot of examples in his tweet here, so go read that. I'll link in the YouTube description below. But it's so intertwined that it doesn't even work. So we're not even talking about the fact that like if there is appetite to do it or not, which there isn't. There is zero appetite for this. Anyone pushing the narrative that Ethereum was even considering rolling back the chain to save these funds was just setting a false narrative here. There was no consideration from anyone in the Ethereum community, no Ethereum leaders, no one. I saw this from no one except Bitcoin maximalists and Solana people. You know, Raj, one of Solana's founders, actually said this as well, tweeted this out. That was ridiculous. I was like, dude, like, come on. You know, this is just, this is really stupid, honestly, especially coming from someone who people give legitimacy to. It's not just some random Bitcoin maxi or some random person on Twitter. It's the founder of one of the founders of Solana. That was really, really disappointing to see, but as I said, not surprised there. But yeah, as I said, like, it's not workable to do this here, and I think that when you look at what happened in the past with the DAO. Like, everyone always references the DAO. It's like, oh, the DAO, we did it, the DAO, we did a rollback. It's like, no, we didn't do a rollback. The chain was not rolled back during the DAO. What happened with the DAO, and why it was a relatively unique situation as well, is that one, it happened way earlier on in Ethereum's life. There was no DeFi, there was no intermingling. Ethereum was tiny in 2016, right? So it was much easier to do back then. It was also a much larger percentage of the supply, of the total supply of ETH. I believe the percentage that was stolen from Bybit was like 0.5% or something. I think the DAO was like 15-20%, so it was a way bigger percentage of the supply back then. And as I said, the ecosystem was smaller, and it wasn't a rollback, it was an irregular state transition. What this means is that the network, I guess like the core devs were able to surgically give the ETH back, or at least take the ETH away from the attacker and give it back to its rightful owners, especially because the ETH was also frozen for a month. So the attacker got the ETH, transferred it into this other address, but they weren't going to be able to access it for a month. So essentially they gave the core developers time to do this. So this isn't the case with the Bybit hack, because the funds were immediately available. They could be bridged everywhere, they could be put into different DeFi protocols, so on and so forth, right? So that wouldn't work here, even in a regular state transition. A rollback 100% wouldn't work. Ethereum is completely different to Bitcoin in that sense as well, because Bitcoin's actually had a rollback in the past too. Very early on in its life in 2010, it had a bug in the client software. A lot of people don't know about this, but this is a well-known bug where a lot of Bitcoin was minted, but then the chain was rolled back in order to fix this bug back really early on, as I said, in 2010. Now, if you wanted to do a rollback on Ethereum today, it's just not possible. Like, it just doesn't work. Because what a rollback is, and why it's different to an irregular state transition, is that you can imagine that if you wanted to essentially, maybe I'm thinking of an analogy on the spot here, but let's just say that you have a city. There's 100 buildings in the city, and one of those buildings randomly blows up, and you're like, okay, shit, we want to reverse that. Like, that's really bad. People died. Like, we want to reverse that. So let's say you had the magical ability to reverse time for just that one building. So you reverse time, building's no longer blown up, and you fix what was going to blow it up, and away you go. The 100 buildings are back, right? It's all well and good. But if you were to do a chain rollback, it's very different, because let's just say that building blew up, and then like a week goes past, and you're like, okay, well, we've got the fix in, we want to fix that building, but we have to basically rewind time for a week. Everything, like not just for the building, but for the whole city. All 100 buildings in the city, everything that happened in the city, everything that happened within that city, contacting other cities, and within like people going in and out of that city, and so on and so forth, that would all have to be undone. Like a week's worth